How's it going, everybody? Landon with the Truck Boss Show. Thank you so much for joining me on this special segment. Excited to have a friend of mine, Mr. Bryan Hutchens. Bryan, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Landon.
Man, I'm excited about the topic that we're going to be discussing. Something that's very emotional, and that's rates. Definitely when it comes to hitting the back pocket of all drivers out there.
It is, and the further we go into more regulations that are forced upon us, it's going to become a bigger and bigger deal to be able to stay ahead of the ball and actually make a profit.
Absolutely. So I have some specific questions, but before I do that, for those who don't know you, share real quickly how long you've been owning your company and possibly what you haul.
I started actually in 2012 on my own. My parents have been in it since my mom started in the early 80s, 80, 81, into operations. And she shut down in 2012. She got tired of dealing with California and was ready to retire, and I went on my own. And we actually do a lot of open deck, step deck, and oversized.
Getting to know you, I know you've been very busy. However, when it comes to the topic of rates, I've seen a lot of posts, not only just from you, but all the friends of the Truck Boss Show on how right now is very challenging and what the future holds, and also how they're trying to protect their business so they can have the cash flow. So, my first question to you, you and I spoke last week over the phone about an experience you had hauling to Vegas and your experience with a certain broker on how to negotiate and bring up a rate. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, so they called me about this load a couple times, and they had this load posted out of Oklahoma going out to Vegas for $2,400, which most people know they're not going to take anyway. But there are a few people that take it to get back. Those people that still believe that the word backhaul is a valid reason. So anyway, he had it posted at 24. He called me, and I shot him a couple of rates, which he shot down. He finally called me back, and he come from 24 up to $3,000. We ended up settling at $4,000 on this load for me to go from Oklahoma to Vegas. And I go, this is a military load. First thing you do, everybody knows it hauls military loads. You pick up the bill of lading, and it says right there across the front what that load pays. So he was originally trying to move this load at $2,400. This load paid $55, $44, $38. So if he could have moved that load at $24, it'd have been a nice $3,100 profit for him in his week. I mean, it's absolutely insane. People keep thinking these rates are dropping from the customer, but in reality, the customers aren't dropping these rates. It's people are not negotiating these rates to where they're actually making enough profit, and the brokers are making a huge profit off of them.
You negotiated with that broker from 2,400 up to $4,000. What are 2 or 3 tips that you would give those who are listening to right now? What are those tips to help them negotiate better rates that you've learned in those books and from mentors?
Well, number one thing is you need to know your cost to run down the road. If you don't know your cost, you can't negotiate. Number two, you need to know when you're looking at that rate or that lane, what it should actually pay and what it's going to take to get you there. You know that if you're going from Oklahoma City to Colorado, that it's going to be a dead market when you get to Colorado. So you've got to load your load going up to where it pays enough that you got enough money to bounce a long way back out of there. A lot of guys are not charging enough. We used to go to South Dakota. We'd load oil field pipe out of Texas going to South Dakota. Those loads would pay $6 to $7 grand a load to go up there, because you get to South Dakota, North Dakota, there's nothing to load back out of there coming back. You have to know your markets. If you are using the cheapest setup packet you can on a load board, you're not getting the full potential you could out of that load board. A lot of these load boards will show you the rate indexes. I really don't mess with, because to me, market rates really don't tell you where you should be. And I was on both sides of this. I've been a broker and I've also been a trucker. So to me, what's a fair rate is what you can find a truck at that time that's at that area that will do it at that moment. You can't base it on, well, DAT says it should be this because that's what's been for the past 60 days, because you have to look where they get those numbers from. But you go back to when you get into that, you need to know where your hot markets are, and DAT or truck stop or any of those are going to have load to truck ratios. If you look at those load to truck ratios and there's 60 loads to every one truck in that area, well, guess what? You have a market cornered there to where you can actually negotiate a higher rate. If you go into an area where there's 5 loads to one truck in that area, you're not going to have as good a potential to get a higher rate as you are if you go into those hot markets.
Bryan out of Oklahoma, my dear friend, thank you for joining us on the Truck Boss Show, and I hope you'll come back.
Love to.